It is 7 in the morning. You have just stepped out of the shower, and in the next 12 minutes, before you leave the house, you are almost certainly going to make at least one of the 5 decisions that will determine whether your hair looks alive and full until evening or flat and defeated by 10. And the most difficult part is that none of these decisions feel like decisions at all. They feel like a routine. They feel like what you have always done. They feel, in the most honest sense, like nothing. That is exactly why they are so damaging. The habits that cost fine aging hair the most are the ones that are invisible, the ones that happen on autopilot while you are thinking about something else, the ones you have performed so many times that your hands do them without your mind being present at all. And because nobody has ever told you to question them, you have not. You have just continued. And the hair has continued to do what it does: lie flat, lose volume, disappoint you by mid-morning on days when you genuinely needed it to cooperate. We are counting down 5 of those habits today, starting at number 5 and building toward the one that I have watched cost more volume, more shine, and more daily frustration for women with fine aging hair than any other single morning moment. It happens in the first 60 seconds after you step out of the shower. It is something almost every woman does. And it is doing structural damage to your hair at the precise moment your hair is least able to protect itself. Do not skip ahead. The habit at number 1 is going to feel familiar in a way that may be slightly uncomfortable. That discomfort is recognition. And recognition is the beginning of change. Before we get into number 5, let me give you a picture of what the right morning routine can do. 2 years ago, I had a client named Helen. She was 61, she had fine silver hair, and she had accepted that her hair would simply not cooperate. She described it as hair that worked against her. She would spend 20 minutes on it every morning and walk out the door with something that fell flat within the hour. She had bought every volumizing product. She had watched every tutorial. Nothing held. When I sat with her and walked through her morning routine step by step, I found all 5 of the habits I am going to count down today. All 5, not in some dramatic way, in the most ordinary, automatic, invisible way possible. She was doing everything wrong in a way that looked exactly like doing everything right. That is the nature of these habits. They are convincing, they feel productive, and they are undermining every good decision you make elsewhere in your routine. We changed 5 things. Just 5. No new products, no new tools, no new length or color. Just 5 decisions made differently in the same 12 minutes she had always had. Within a week, she sent me a photograph. She wrote 2 words underneath it: finally cooperating. That is what this countdown is for. Number 5. Wrapping your hair in a regular towel and leaving it there. After every shower, the hair goes into the towel. That is the routine. And it makes complete sense as a routine. The towel absorbs the water. It keeps the hair contained while you do other things. It feels practical and efficient. The problem is what the towel is doing to the hair while it sits there. Here is the technical reality. Wet hair is at its weakest structural point. The hydrogen bonds that give hair its strength are temporarily broken by water. The cuticle, the outer protective layer, is open. The hair is pliable and stretched beyond its normal resting state. At this moment, any friction applied to the hair shaft creates damage that it cannot resist. A regular cotton or terry cloth towel is a friction machine. The loop texture of the towel grabs onto the raised cuticle scales and drags against them as the towel is twisted, squeezed, or simply worn on the head. Every minute the towel is in place and every adjustment made to it creates micro-abrasion along the hair shaft. On fine aging hair, which has naturally thinner individual strands and a more fragile cuticle than younger hair, this friction creates breakage and frizz that no amount of styling can fully reverse afterward. There is also a physical compression issue. When fine hair is wrapped tightly in a regular towel and left for 10 to 20 minutes, the weight and tightness of the towel compresses the root area against the scalp. The hair dries in a partially compressed position. The natural growth direction is disrupted before any styling has even begun. And the root lift you are going to spend the next 15 minutes trying to create with a blow dryer is working against the shape already set by the towel. The fix is specific. Replace the regular towel with either a microfiber hair towel or a clean cotton t-shirt. The flat, smooth texture of both materials does not grab the cuticle. Microfiber absorbs water significantly faster than terry cloth, which means less time wrapped and less time compressed. A cotton t-shirt has a similarly smooth weave that allows the hair to dry without friction rather than against it. The technique matters as much as the material. Do not rub. Do not wring. Do not twist. Squeeze gently from root to end, pressing the water out rather than scrubbing it off. Then either loosely pile the hair on the head in the microfiber towel without twisting or simply leave the t-shirt draped over the hair for no more than 5 to 10 minutes. This one change is often the first one that shows visible results because it addresses damage that was happening at the very beginning of the styling process. Before anything else could counteract it, there is also a timing element worth knowing. The longer wet fine hair sits in any kind of covering, the more the hair dries in a compressed position that styling must then work against. 5 to 8 minutes of gentle absorption is the window. Beyond that window, you are not removing more water in any meaningful quantity. You are just setting the hair flatter. 5 minutes is genuinely enough. Number 4. Brushing wet hair with a regular brush. This habit sits so deep in most women's morning routines that questioning it feels almost strange. You get out of the shower. You brush your hair. That is the sequence. It has been the sequence for 50 years. And on healthy young thick hair, a regular brush on wet hair creates some damage, but the hair is resilient enough to absorb it. On fine aging hair, brushing while wet is one of the fastest ways to create the kind of cumulative breakage that makes already thin hair look visibly thinner over time. The science is the same science as the towel issue. Wet hair stretches. A regular brush applies tension as it passes through the hair. When the hair is wet and at maximum stretch, that tension exceeds the hair's ability to resist it. Strands snap, not visibly in a single brushing session, microscopically, across hundreds of strokes, across hundreds of mornings. And what accumulates is a gradual shortening and thinning of the hair at the lengths and ends that makes the overall volume of the hair decrease in a way that feels inexplicable because no single session felt damaging. There is also a volume consequence entirely separate from breakage. When you brush wet fine hair, you align all the strands in the same direction. The hair lies completely flat. Every strand runs parallel to its neighbors with no variation, no texture, no separation. That smooth flat alignment becomes the shape the hair dries into. Even if you blow dry afterward with every volumizing technique correctly applied, you are starting from a flatter baseline. The alternative is a wide tooth comb used on conditioner-saturated hair in the shower, working from ends upward toward the roots before you even turn the water off. The conditioner provides slip that dramatically reduces friction. Working from ends to roots prevents the dragging tension that snapping strands requires. After the shower, use only your fingers to gently separate and arrange the hair. Do not introduce a brush until the hair is at least 80% dry. At that point, the hydrogen bonds have largely reformed. The cuticle has partially closed, and the hair has enough structural integrity to withstand the tension of a brush without significant damage. The 80% dry point is easier to identify than it sounds. The hair should feel cool to the touch rather than cold and wet. When you press a section between your fingers, no water transfers to your hands. The hair has some weight from residual moisture, but it moves freely rather than clumping or sticking together. One practical addition that makes the whole sequence easier. After finger detangling in the shower and before any other styling, apply a lightweight leave-in conditioner or a detangling spray only to the mid-lengths and ends. This gives the hair slip that makes finger separation easier and reduces the tension on any remaining tangles as the hair dries. Number 3. Applying heat without a heat protectant. Every one of those responses makes complete sense, and every one of them is costing the hair something that is not visible in the short term but is very visible over the course of a year. Here is what heat does to aging hair specifically. Hair after 60 has a naturally more porous cuticle than younger hair. The cuticle does not lie as flat. The gaps between the scales are slightly larger. This increased porosity means heat penetrates the hair shaft more deeply and with less resistance than it would on a denser younger strand when heat is applied to a porous hair shaft without a protective barrier. The moisture inside the cortex converts to steam and expands. If that expansion happens faster than the steam can escape through the cuticle, small bubbles form inside the hair shaft. The mild version presents as hair that looks dull, feels rough, and breaks easily. It is damage you can feel when you run your fingers down a strand and find a texture that is rough rather than smooth. A lightweight heat protectant applied to damp hair before blow drying creates a barrier between the heat source and the hair shaft. It slows the rate of moisture evaporation so the steam can escape gradually rather than explosively. For fine hair specifically, a spray formulation gives protection without weight. Apply it to the mid-lengths and ends specifically, where the hair is most porous and most exposed to direct heat. The temperature setting matters as much as the protectant. Fine aging hair does not need maximum heat. A medium heat setting with higher airflow achieves the same result with significantly less thermal stress. Finishing each section with a brief cool blast closes the cuticle and locks in the shape. There is one more aspect of heat damage on aging hair that is rarely discussed. Repeated heat exposure, even at moderate temperatures, gradually degrades the melanin and keratin structure of the hair shaft. On silver and gray hair, this degradation can create a yellowish or brassy tone that has nothing to do with product buildup. It is thermal oxidation. A lightweight heat protectant with UV or thermal filters slows this process considerably, keeping silver hair brighter. The investment in a lightweight heat protectant spray that dries invisibly is one of the highest return product decisions in the entire morning routine. It protects the shaft, preserves the color, and costs less per use than almost any other product in a typical hair care lineup. Number 2. Blow drying from the top down. This is the habit that feels most logical. You start at the top of the head because that is where your hands are. You work the blow dryer from the crown downward because that is the direction the hair grows and the direction toward the mirror. It is orderly. It is systematic. And it is systematically producing flat hair by setting the root area in the exact direction it falls rather than the direction it needs to go. Here is the physics. Root lift requires the hair to be lifted away from the scalp and dried in that lifted position. When air flows from above downward, it presses the hair against the scalp as it dries. The root is set flat. No amount of subsequent lifting, teasing, or product can fully override a root that has been blow-dried into contact with the scalp. The technique that creates lasting root volume is the opposite of this. Flip the head forward so the hair hangs downward toward the floor. Dry the root area first, directing the airflow upward from below toward the scalp rather than downward from above. The hair, lifted by gravity and the upward airflow, dries in a lifted position rather than a flat one. The root sets with height and separation that was built in during drying rather than fought for afterward. If tipping the head completely upside down is uncomfortable, section the hair and work in horizontal sections from the bottom up, lifting each section away from the scalp before directing the airflow under it. The goal is always the same. The hair at the root must be lifted away from the scalp and dried in that lifted position before the heat is moved to any other area. Once the roots are set with lift, turn the head upright and work the mid-lengths and ends. Use a round brush for movement and bend, or a large paddle brush for a smoother finish. But the root section must always be done first, with upward airflow, with the hair in a lifted position, the distance between the blow dryer and the hair matters more than most women realize. Holding the nozzle 2 to 3 inches from the hair is effective and safe. Keep the dryer moving rather than holding it in one place. A diffuser attachment can be genuinely valuable for fine aging hair even if the hair is relatively straight. The diffuser spreads the airflow over a wider area, allowing sections to dry with more natural texture and separation. For fine hair that needs volume rather than sleekness, a diffuser used on medium heat while the hair hangs forward toward the floor can create a natural-looking fullness at the root. And now, number 1, the morning habit that happens in the first 60 seconds after you step out of the shower. The one I promised at the beginning of this countdown. The one that Helen did every morning for years without knowing it was the first and most foundational mistake in her entire routine. Number 1. Rubbing your hair dry with a regular towel. I know I already addressed the towel in number 5, but number 5 was about leaving the towel on the head. Number 1 is about the moment before that, the rubbing. The vigorous back and forth motion against the scalp and through the lengths that most women perform automatically, instinctively. In the first seconds out of the shower, that motion is the most damaging single action in the entire morning routine for fine aging hair. The cuticle of wet hair is fully open. The hydrogen bonds are broken. The strand is stretched to its maximum length. In this state, any friction creates mechanical damage that the hair literally cannot resist. When you rub a terry cloth towel back and forth through wet fine hair, you are creating thousands of points of friction along thousands of individual strands in a matter of seconds. The cuticle scales that were open are being grabbed and dragged in random directions. Strands that were parallel are being tangled into knots that require additional force to separate. And individual hairs that had sufficient strength to survive gentle handling are snapping under tension they cannot absorb. The immediate visible symptom is frizz. The cuticle, disturbed by the friction, does not lie smooth when the hair dries. It remains rough and rough raised cuticles catch light inconsistently and scatter it rather than reflecting it. That is what frizz actually is. Not moisture, not humidity. Disturbed cuticle structure, the cumulative symptom, invisible in any single session but very visible over months, is thinning at the ends. The ends of the hair are the oldest and most fragile part. They have been subjected to this friction the longest. They break first, and the result is hair that looks noticeably thinner and shorter at the ends than at the root, as if the hair has been disappearing from the bottom up. Because it has been, the replacement is simple and it costs nothing. After stepping out of the shower, do not rub. Press the hair between your palms from root toward ends, squeezing the water out gently along the length of the hair. Repeat twice. Then wrap the hair loosely in a microfiber towel or drape a cotton t-shirt over it, pressing gently rather than squeezing or twisting. Leave it for no more than 5 to 8 minutes. That is the sequence. Press, not rub. Microfiber or a cotton t-shirt, not terry cloth. 5 to 8 minutes of gentle absorption, not 20 of tight compression. And from that point forward, every other technique in this countdown has a clean foundation to build on rather than a compromised one to fight against. Helen sent me another photograph 6 months after we changed her routine. Not of her hair specifically, of herself at a family dinner. She was laughing, turned slightly away from the camera, and her hair was catching the light in a way that made her look genuinely and effortlessly alive. She wrote one sentence with it. I stopped fighting it. That sentence is the whole goal of this channel and of every video here. Not perfect hair. Not hair that requires an hour of effort every morning or a shelf full of expensive products. Hair that you have stopped fighting because you finally understand what it needs and you give it exactly that instead of the things that were quietly working against it every single morning. Every one of these 5 habits can be changed starting tomorrow morning. Same shower, same 12 minutes. 5 different decisions made intentionally rather than automatically. The the hair you have right now is the very same hair you will have tomorrow morning. What is different now is what you know about it. That is the whole point. Not better products. Not a different cut. Not more time. Just 5 decisions made differently in the 12 minutes you have always had.